most exciting moment. So, as you might have noticed, we're a little bit behind time because I can see catering right outside. And I know the perils of being the last session before lunch. It's kind of like you get hungry people, you get impatient people. People are checking their smartphones right now. But it's okay, we'll try to make this short and sweet, and we'll love for you to be as engaged and involved as possible. Before that happens, we'd like to give a round of applause to our MC job today. Thank you very much. My name is Jeremy. I'll be moderating this panel. I am a research fellow at the University of Southern California. I used to head the incubator at StarHub before becoming a board member with Sensity in Shenzhen, China. Today, we're going to talk about the future of work. So to help us with that, we have the speakers from today's session. First up, Victor. Victor, please join us. Pick a seat. Do you like orange or do you like the white color one? Beige? I don't know. Reminds me of NDP colors, and we just had that yesterday. All right, we'll also like to bring back our speakers, Anne, Sebastian, as well as Jason. Please give them a warm welcome applause back on stage here. So who's going to be the center of attention? Maybe Sebastian? No? Maybe? Okay. All right. I'm just going to move over there because I don't want it to be like very distant. I want to go closer to you guys right now. All right, so just want to make sure all mics are on. Check.
Hello.
1, 2.
Yep.
Test.
Check 1, 2, 3.
1, 2, 3.
Oh my God. Mine is the one that's out. Okay, now it's in. Hey, thank you very much. Okay. All right, so we're going to try to do 20 minutes here. We're just going to keep questions here, and after that, we're going to open up to the floor. Okay, so we're just going to jump right into it. I know you guys are all warmed up and ready to answer some questions, right? So we saw the future of work. We have an inkling of what it might look like. We looked at the gig economy. We looked at how organizations can scale, how to manage talent. And it's interesting today that this conference is happening at this place called the Lifelong Learning Institute. This is the brainchild of the Singapore government. They announced this 2 or 3 years ago that, workers are becoming obsolete. What they have learned is obsolete. So when we talk about the future of work, it seems that our inputs are a little bit problematic. What have we done wrong with education, and what do you think the future of education should look like? Maybe we can start with Victor, since you're a teacher, right? So maybe we can start with you, then we can move down.
Well, my general answer to that is because economies are constantly evolving and changing, and the rate of change is faster and faster, I think we need more of an entrepreneurial climate when it comes to education at all levels, right? Because what's necessary today may not be so necessary tomorrow, even in a short amount of time. So the cut and dried educational system that we have in the United States, where people pretty much learn the same things from grade kindergarten through grade 12, we need to break away from that model more. We need to allow more entrepreneurship and discovery, and the teaching needs to be less informational and more about how to adapt to change. The education needs to be more conceptual, because what we need to be is prepared for constant change, because change is the only thing that will, or one of the few things we'll know is constant in the future.
All right, so maybe let's move out of the education realm to the people who are managing this talent that's coming out of our schools. How about you, Anne? What do you think is wrong with our education system, and what can we do to change it?
Yes, so I think education, today we're seeing life with first we learn, then we work, and after we retire. The thing is that what we learn today is not really adapted to the future, because we don't know what the future looks like. I mean, the job of tomorrow, we have no clue what they're going to be, and so it's difficult to learn the skills for that. But what we know is that the skills of the future are going to need much more soft skills than technical skills, because the jobs that are being taken over by technology are those that need technical knowledge. What we need as humans to develop more and more are human skills that machines cannot take, and these are the soft skills, so empathy, being the ability to collaborate, the ability to be creative, etc., flexibility, adapting to change, etc. So that's the first thing. So we are already not starting. But then when we are in the workplace, the system that we have assumes first, as I said during the presentation, that we're going to leave until, work until we're 60 or 65. That's not going to be the case. We're going to have multiple work lives. And so we need to be able to retrain over time. And the current structure of work doesn't allow that. I do foresee something that would be much more adapted to the work life, where we would have education. So we will start with education, but then work, and then we would be able to have some breaks, whether to retire, to take a break, or to train new skills and then start a new lifetime. More and more people are having a second work that is totally different. So governments need to integrate that, but companies as well. And the last thing that I would like to add is we're still very attached to full-time jobs. And I know that the two of you have been speaking about that, that we should be thinking about it differently, and I totally agree with it. Companies want to retain employees as much as possible, but why? Why do we need to retain them if their learning curves is going down and their productivity as well and the motivation as well, etc.? And Reid Hoffman, who is the founder of LinkedIn, wrote a very interesting book called The Alliance, and his thesis is work between employer and employee, it's a contract. And usually this contract is like 2 years. And the contract is, as an employee, you come in to fulfill a project. It's more project-based. And you're going to do it. You're going to fully be in on that. And we don't expect you to be, stay. We don't promise you to stay for forever. And as an employer, we provide you, of course, salary, but also better employability in the future. And I do really trust that companies shouldn't see retention more than 2 years. I think 2 years is just the right time to think about employment. It's good for employees and for the companies at the same time.
All right, thank you very much. Sebastian, would you like to add to that, since this seems to be right in your area as well?
Yeah, so from an employer's perspective, I couldn't agree more, because we've, as a company, also changed a lot over these 7 years that we've been in existence. And one pattern is that usually the people who you have on board for 2-3 years with a certain mode of business, a certain business model, a certain being of the company, they are definitely harder to actually adapt to a radical change, as opposed to finding people from the outside, new talent. So for me, turnover is very healthy. It's healthy for the company as well as for the employee, absolutely. And of course, in our industry, technology, right, skills do expire very quickly. Change is not only constant, change is accelerating. So in the beginning, HTML, PHP, etc. had a lifespan of 10, 15 years. Now technologies that people come up with and adapt and then throw away have lifespans of 4 years, 5 years. It's getting shorter and shorter. So yeah, continuous learning is the only thing that actually protects you from that change and allows you to stay relevant. And I also see, at least from our experience, that the best people who do find meaning in their work, who love their work, they're the first ones to push the boundaries and to look for the next thing that is coming along. They are not threatened by disruption of their existing skills whatsoever, because this learning mindset is also what makes the best people the best people. They are so interested in what they do that they want to stay up to date and they want to keep pushing the boundaries.
This is really exciting. Jason, I want to bring it over to you right now. So, in light of all this, let's go back to the heart of this. What is the relevance of education to the future of work? Or maybe let's make it a bit more specific. Well, what is the relevance of university education to the future of work as we are seeing the conversation here evolve?
I think I agree very much with Victor. I think that it's going to be a bit less informational, a bit less content heavy, and more training you how to think. So I think that education really should be thinking about training, right? Because you need that training and you need to be structured and systematic. So I was lucky, I went to undergrad and...
Because there, the whole paradigm is changing. These people got their jobs because they are very, very good at a certain thing. They, for example, in chemicals, they know everything about the supply chain in the chemical industry. They know everything about this, they know everything about that. The authority and the whole reason for being there is rooted in knowledge. And what we are proposing in terms of working agile, working lean, embracing also this kind of new way of organizing a company, it takes a leader that does not assume that he knows everything, but a leader that enables others to be better than he is and to take basically all the obstacles out of their way, but without assuming that he actually has the answers, and he does not have the answers. That is true anyways. They don't have the answers anymore. So they're super afraid of this, and they are often killing a lot of the proposals that we try to make and other people inside of the organization are trying to make to change the way that a big company works, because they are scared for their jobs, because what gave them the job, what gave them the competence and the authority is not relevant anymore if they shift to that way of working. So I don't know whether they'll be able to change.
Jason, would you like to add to that?
Yeah. So I think every company is different, so the answer is it depends.
That's the best statement anyone can make, right?
Yeah, but,
On any day.
But you know, I've definitely seen middle management being a problem. Another problem I've seen actually is actually institutional, right? So actually the situation that I see a lot is CEOs or the leadership team decides that, hey, they want to do innovation, they want to be agile, they want to be fast. So they send a group of middle managers for training, senior managers for training. And then, they go for training for 2 weeks, right? Now they're experts, they're really good at what they do. They come back and the first thing the boss of that person says is, you've been enjoying yourself for 2 weeks, now you have to hit your KPIs. Right? So what happens is these guys now have negative impact because they're suddenly like, shit, I need to catch up on 2 weeks of non-work. Everybody is resentful, and now, guess what? Because who do you send, right? You send your top performers. You send the people who are earning $1 million for the company, right? And are you going to tell them tomorrow, slow down, do projects? It doesn't matter. I'm okay with foregoing that $1 million. That's not how it works, right? So what I've also seen is that these middle managers are often not set up for success, because the KPIs don't tend to work out. The top has a direction, but then when they think about the plan doesn't make sense, right? You're sending these people and telling them to do extra, but saying, I need you to hit now 20% more than you hit last year, right? That's not how things tend to work. So I think that as with anything, I think that when people think about this, they have to think about the whole system, right? Don't just think of sending people, don't just think of like, who am I bringing, but think about what KPIs are you setting in? What plan do you have in place, right? And how are you going to set them up for success? And if you want them to do something different, then what are you going to tell them to not do? Because something has to give, something has to be sacrificed. And I don't often see CEOs think like that, right? They'll think 1 million, great. Next year 1.2 million. And who's going to do innovation? That's you too, right? And do it without getting a raise, right? So no wonder it doesn't tend to work. Yeah.
Anything to add, Victor, on your side?
Even though I come from an academic background, I can tell you this. The most effective managers that I've ever had are ones who were cheerleaders for my success. They wanted me to be successful within the company. If another opportunity came along outside the company, they celebrated that success because they knew that I was valuable, and they were sad to lose me as an individual, but they were also glad that they had somebody on their team who somebody else desired. So when you give individuals enough space within your organization to engage in their own creative acts and to figure out better ways of doing things, and when management is responsive to them and they don't get framed, as you pointed out, then the entire entity can thrive, but individuals need the space to be creative, and they need a managerial team that supports that creativity.
And Lostwoods?
Yeah, I think the assumption that you take is that we are in an organization that doesn't trust much the individuals. I I really think that as an organization, you need to build the whole system around the fact that you assume the best of the people, not you assume the worst. Today, indeed, most of organizations are designed because they want to prevent the worst from the people. So that's why we have all these, performance reviews and KPIs, etc. But if you trust your recruiting process and the fact that what you're trying to do, and that people are intelligent enough to understand what they have to do and how they contribute their best, then that makes things much easier. And indeed, the work of the manager is an enabler, the same as HR and the rest of the organization. We enable people to give their best. In order to do that, you need, the least, processes and restraint as possible. You need just to open up, let them open up. So yeah, I think it's still, to me, an old model of structure and thinking when we assume the worst of the individuals.
I guess the moral of the story is trust your taxi driver. Your life is in their hands. Okay, I think we have time for one last question.
Good. One question to your specific areas, your own company, your own realm. What can older people do in a gig economy?
Okay, so to repeat the question, what can older people do in the gig economy? Well, I mean, I was going to point to Victor. I was like, oh, that's not very sensitive.
Well, I do have one short answer, and the short answer is benefit from it. Right? We all benefit from the gig economy, so enjoy the benefits that accrue to you, whether you're a young person or an older person from the gig economy.
All right, Jason, would you like to add to that?
So I think that again, there are many ways, so it depends. Yeah. But if you're currently working in a company, like I say, I think go to your bosses and ask if you can get exposure to different projects, right? Because that's the best way to branch out, and it's the best way to do it in a safe environment. If you're not currently working in a company and want to be more of a gig worker across companies, then I think the way to think about it is that you are really starting a business. And everything that goes along with that. You need a brand, you need pricing, you need to figure out what your strengths are and your weaknesses are, and go get it, right? Your thoughts and your actions are yours. They're not going to be given to you, right? So think about, like, if you were to buy something for somebody, what do they need to prove to you? And you would have to do the exact same thing. So, I think gig in this context is a big and it's a new word, but really at the end of the day, if you start going down that path, what you're really doing is you're being self-employed, right? You're really being your own businessman, you're running your own company. So think about it like that, yeah. And then I think you will be down the right track.
I think that question comes at a pretty appropriate time because I think there are a lot of anxiety surrounding that. It's like, how will my job look like? How will I take care of my family? So, I mean, like I said, I think, it comes back to buy-in. How do you get the buy-in from them? And these are not, the millennials. These are not the people, the designers, who want a part-time gig and try to have as much breadth as possible. If you're working with an older worker, how would you persuade him or her that the gig economy is something worth trying out and you could potentially benefit from it?
So I wouldn't persuade them because you cannot push people to this type of conclusion, and you cannot even when we were speaking earlier about the learning and development or training things, you don't push people to learn your employees. If they don't want to learn, they won't learn. And so I'm very much into the thinking and the idea that in an organization the learning needs to be driven by the employee, and then the company or the managers are facilitators of that, but it needs to be driven by the employees. when it comes to aging employees, it's more of a mindset. So as an organization, you need to help them understand what are the different options, and that's what a good manager or a good organization would do. It's like facilitating and ensuring what are the different options. But I can understand that it's super complicated. The knowledge thing that you spoke about, the fact that that was the goals of of their time, and that now it's about being flexible. It's kind of complicated. But there's the ones that can benefit indeed the most from this, because they can they can learn new things and they can be exposed to new things, and that's usually what they lack the most in organizations. But basically, it's the gig economy for me, or whether that this one but it's giving back the power to the people, instead of telling you, okay, you've chosen this career and you're going to stay there for 20 years, even if you're not happy with it, even if you're you're tired, or even if the industry is going down. We've seen with the manufacturing industry, all those, getting on the side and like, oh my God, I don't know what to do. What else can I do? So the gig economy allows you to, have more skills and find other, new perspectives. So but again, you can't push people. There's no other way than explaining and
Okay.
Facilitating.
Facilitating, I think that's really good. All right, I want to facilitate the end of our panel. So before that happens, let's, talk about your hope, okay? In one sentence, let's talk about, your hope for the future of work. How does it look like? Maybe let's start with Jason on that side. In one sentence, what's your hope for the future of work?
So I think that for me, at the end of the day, work is about, as was mentioned, I think it's about being passionate. I think it's about doing what you love and creating value. And, hopefully at the end of the day, monetary rewards come in too. So, you keep score and you're doing a good job. But for me, the whole gig economy movement is about, it ultimately comes down to passion. So what I've seen a lot of people, why they get in the gig economy, is because they're doing stuff that maybe it starts to get boring, or they're doing stuff that they didn't actually originally set out to do, right? And ultimately passion leads them down that path. So I think for me, the future of work, I hope, is something where everybody is doing what they love.
Fantastic. Victor?
Yeah, so echoing Jason's comments, my hope is that the future is very different from the future that people like my father had, right? Centuries ago, all around the world, you were born into one community, you stayed in that community, you did the job that your parents had had and their parents had had before you, and you really didn't have the opportunity to consider something like vocation. What could I be doing instead with my life? And the more that we work together to try to create a society of opportunity, where even though there's constant change, jobs come, jobs go away, if people have the opportunity to consider, what can I do that would be even better than what I'm doing today? What would I enjoy more, regardless of what the paycheck is like? And what would give my children a better life than the one that I have? That's a future that makes me very hopeful.
Wonderful. Sebastian?
Well, coming from the technology industry, I hope that we use the technology that we're building anyways in a way that has moral sensibility, not only in regards to shareholders of a company, but actually the people who we then employ through these new ways of employment, to actually have everybody globally benefit from the possibilities of applying themselves, having an opportunity to apply their skills and make a living, and also balance their lives in a way that suits them best, because I think we have the opportunity to make that happen, to break out of the traditional models, and not to use it in a way that will actually disadvantage the people who are not very adept at using technology, or who might not have a certain set of skills currently very high in demand, because that fluctuates all the time, which is a very large risk. So I hope that this moral consideration and the benefit to everyone always swings in the minds of people when inventing and applying technology in this context.
Thank you very much. Anne?
Yeah, I very much agree with everything I've heard. My personal mission is to bring happiness in the workplace. I truly believe that we're all made for something, that we all have inner talents like that are innate, but we haven't really had the opportunity to self-explore a lot. That's not, we haven't been in cultures that have allowed us to self-explore enough to know what we should be doing instead of, doing what is in front of us. So I really hope that the work will not be what it is with, related to labor and something hard to do, etc., but more something that we're doing to fulfill a passion, as you were saying, and that because we're fulfilling this passion, it becomes useful and it provides money and not the other around. Today, we're still doing work for money. I foresee that it will be the other way around, and that it shouldn't touch only, happiness in the workplace shouldn't touch, be only for the white collars, but indeed for the whole organization. But that's probably, future, but I believe in it.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is the future of work. Please give a warm round of applause to our speakers today. Thank you very much. Lunch apparently is ready.